Saints Row review embargo launched or lifted this morning. It's morning where I am. So it basically lifted like what, an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, something like that. And the reaction has been mixed. Not okay. It's been pretty much unanimously rough. If we refresh here, yeah, so 44 critic reviews. Let's just take a peek. We've got a couple. I will look at this one here in just a second from Gaming Nexus because it perfectly encapsulates one of the problems that I think people aren't aware of when we talk about reviews and videos and articles from gaming publications. So we'll touch on it again in just a second, but we'll come back to that. If we look at the others, the average rating is 63. This is for the PS5 version specifically, but it's indicative pretty much across the board. And if we look at what most people are generally saying, quote, after so many facelifts, there were fears that Saints Row would fail to recapture the unconventional beauty of the earlier games, but this reboot proves how adept Volition is when it comes to reinventing their flagship franchise. This latest outing is my favorite game in the series to date, so while basic combat and dips in visual quality are disappointing, they did little to keep me away from Santo Ileso. You'll struggle to find anything groundbreaking through this sandbox, or though this sandbox is bursting with entertaining things to do, ideal for sharing with a partner in crime. So a 7 out of 10, kind of okay. Like it's okay. It doesn't do anything crazy. It's okay. If we go down to the 6 out of 10s, they begin mentioning technical issues. And this is something you'll see all over the place in the 6 out of 10s. This is just a difference in review philosophy. For me, if I have severe technical issues with a game, it's at least a full point reduction, just so everybody is like aware of how I tend to do things. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 points deducted. Other times it's just 1. Like, for example, Deathloop, I had all sorts of technical issues, including I had a point, which many other people had, where if you open the menu during a mission, there was like a 10% chance that you wouldn't be able to close it, and then all of the buttons on the controller would no longer work to navigate that menu. So the only way out of it would be to basically hard restart your PlayStation 5. This is me restarting my PlayStation 5 with a finger. And that would lead you to losing like 40 minutes of gameplay because of the way that it worked, where it was a single day, and if you died during that day, the whole thing would be reset. So in this case, if you had to reset during the day, like in the evening or the afternoon, you would lose all of that progress. So for me, it happened like twice, I think 2, maybe 3 times. It's been a minute, but it happened multiple times, and I lost a significant amount of time. And that, for me, is worthy of penalization. And with this game, there are many technical issues as well, some of which we'll see in the videos when we look at like Carrick from ACG's review here in just a minute. Technical issues notwithstanding, Saints Row is not without its shortcomings, but it succeeds more often than it doesn't. Even with the release date pushed back, it still doesn't feel finalized. The tech issues can hopefully be ironed out in a patch or two, but the characters could have also benefited from further development and being more fleshed out. Santo Ileso is a great open sandbox to explore, but it seems like a greater emphasis was placed on repetitive criminal venture activities and less on the more exciting story missions. Still, what Saints Row does well What Saints Row does well is it does very well with memorable. Okay, that's just a weird sentence. What Saints Row does well is it does very well with memorable story missions after Saints have established themselves. The banter between characters is generally entertaining, and a lot of the humor is derived from this series never taking itself too seriously. There's a lot of potential with this reboot and a new cast of characters, but it doesn't seem like it was fully realized in this title, making it a game that's fun for Saints Row fans, but isn't the spectacular reboot we were hoping for. This is an important statement, and this is something that you're going to see here in just a minute is a common theme. So diehard fans might not mind a lot of the quirks, but new audiences don't expect this to be like, a total reinvention like God of War 2018, where it brings in new people that have never played these games before. It's not going to do that. Okay. It's just not. Has it really been 9 years? Yeah, I guess 2013. Yeah, that's insane. It's been 9 years since Saints Row 4, but I can't read. And this new entry feels like a back to basics reboot. But technical issues, bugs, and many more little frustrations conspire to make this a middling experience at launch. It's unfortunate because when Saints Row fires on all cylinders, it's an absolute blast with some truly lofty high points. Then we get into some like just downright negative reviews, like failing grades. VGC, Video Game Chronicle. It's a below average open world game that's stuffed to bursting with bugs. Is it just me? Or like some of these sentences just clunky? Maybe I can't read. It's a below average open world game that's stuffed to the brim is what they meant. Bursting with bugs. And the best thing we can say about it is that making our Tobias Fionke inspired character crouch over and do the walking or wanker gesture while he walked down the street made us laugh. Probably not quite worth the price of admission. Tobias Fionke. Oh, Arrested Development. Talk about great TV shows too, man. That is a phenomenal show. If you haven't seen Arrested Development, go watch it. It's so good. It's so good. It's also, it stood the test of time so well. Like it was filmed in like the early 2000s. And it still is like really, really, really solid. But okay, so I want to touch on this. So this guy, middling, or it's unfortunate because when Saints Row fires on all cylinders, it's an absolute blast. This one, making it a game that's fun for Saints Row fans. And also this. So this is the Gaming Nexus review. These guys gave it a 9.5 out of 10. Okay? 9.5 out of 10. They thought this was like straight up on the level of Elden Ring and The Last of Us. Like they're giving it a score in that range. Okay. If we look at the review, how he opens it, Eric Hauter, maybe. I'm just going to come out with it. And I don't care what anyone thinks. I like Saints Row games better than Grand Theft Auto games. I've never beaten a GTA title, but I've beaten every Saints Row game. And that right there tells you everything you need to know. Okay. This is why I think it's just important for people to understand what they're getting when they get a review. When you like read a review from any given site, you have to understand the person they're putting on the review, in this case, Eric. They put Eric on this review because he's a diehard fan of Saints Row. So of course they were going to come out and really like it because it's more Saints Row, as long as it's like roughly in line with Saints Row, which is the common thread. And all of these reviews, they're saying, yeah, no, it's, if you are a Saints Row fan, you'll probably enjoy it. But for everybody else, it's not very fun. And this guy comes out and says, I like Saints Row games way more than GTA. I've never even finished a GTA game. And so if you are a player who also has never finished GTA games, doesn't really like GTA, but really likes Saints Row, you'll probably find a lot of points in this review that you agree with. And if you are somebody that's like, well, no, like GTA seems like an objectively more impressive game, I would think, then you're probably not going to get much from this review. But a lot of people just look at these like quick numbers and are like, oh, wow, it's a 6 out of 10, 4 out of 10, oh, 7.5 out of 10, or oh, 9.5 out of 10. And they don't delve into it a little deeper. All of these reviews are based on the bias with which the reviewer begins the experience with. If you are a Saints Row fan, your odds of liking this remake are probably a lot higher than, or reboot, are probably a lot higher than your average Joe Schmo who wasn't ever super into these types of games. The one positive thing is that in this review, he just comes out and says it up front. Instead of beating around the bush and pretending like this is an objective opinion that everybody should agree with, he's just like, yeah, I personally like these things. But the one potential issue with this is that YouTubers are no different, okay? YouTubers are no different. We all have our own biases, to be clear. You know, I really like simulation games. I really like narrative RPGs. I like high production value stuff. I like big set pieces. I like flashy graphics. I like really grounded, gritty stories. And if you understand that about my take, then you'll probably understand why I'm not like super into the like cartoony Sunset Overdrive type games, right? But you understand that based on my starting position. Every YouTuber has this. One of my frustrations that I've noticed with a lot of YouTubers that do video game reviews is that they don't often make their starting point clear, or at least as clear as they should be. So people go into it thinking that they're getting like a super level-headed, objective breakdown. But like, no matter who you are going to like have those biases that affect your opinion. If we look at this is Carrick from ACG, his review. Let's see what he thought of it. Carrick is phenomenal, amazingly gifted and talented, stunning, brave, and beautiful. Highly recommend that you check him out. Let's just see his initial thoughts on this.
Move almost everything from a game's general identity and reformat it as a reboot of a beloved franchise, especially if that game was known as one of the more over-the-top politically incorrect titles in the world, poking fun at even the most over-the-top games, like its competitor, Grand Theft Auto. Can it still succeed, and is success the same as being good? The last question we already know the answer to. Success doesn't mean being good, but we want them to combine in our games. Just like third-person open-world games have grown to let us shoot and drive and glide and boat and tornado attack enemies. The mixing of all these things into one and how they come together will give us the answer, and I'm going to give you the answer here in my review for Saints Row Reboot, which is...
And if the title doesn't give it away, WTF happened? Oh God. Yeah, it's just going to keep getting better and better. And again, for the record, for everybody who came in after the fact, like I said, I didn't sign the embargo paperwork and everything because I was at a wedding, blah, blah, blah. It's been a long week. But all that means is I'm not allowed to show any footage that I've collected until the official release launches. And so as of right now, I can't show anything that I have. So we're going to look at some of these to like demonstrate the points that we're going to discuss. So, yeah. Yeah, Lukeman Gold React content. Dude, those Asmongold React videos are gold. I didn't think like I would find them like so engaging, but he does really throw out quality like reactions. It's pretty amazing. That guy, say what you will about Asmongold, he is phenomenally gifted at just going. Like he just won't stop. He can talk for a 12-hour stream without breaking. Like he might take a bathroom break once, but he just goes and goes and goes and goes. Like that is a skill. If people think that that's easy, it is very, very, very impressive. But yeah, Luke Shilhens TV. Yeah, I see. My name doesn't really work with any like fun memes like skill up, shill up. I see what you did there. But like Luke, like you can rhyme it with puke. But like that's kind of a layup, you know, that's not that clever. It doesn't really work that well. It's not specific to game, you know? Yeah, right. Just change your name. Stop being selfish. Just change your name, damn it. But yeah, the big thing is with these reviews, as long as people are transparent with where they're starting from, we can evaluate it. Because one of my frustrations is that people like I think it was like I really liked Weird West. I thought Weird West was weird and fun and quirky and just different. And the fact that it's on Game Pass made it a no-brainer. Like I had a lot of fun with that. And I didn't have to pay any money out of pocket. But I think it was like Skill Up or one of those guys thought that the game was bad and just said, stay away from it. And so when I put out like a little video saying I really liked it, people came at me and were like, well, Skill Up said he didn't like it. So I'm like, good for him. Yeah. No, he's probably playing the game with a kangaroo on the couch with him, drinking mimosas. Like, I don't care what he's doing. I don't care why he likes it or doesn't. We all have our own opinions. The whole point is that we try to justify our opinions in these arguments, which are in the form of videos compelling people to potentially agree with us or disagree with us. And that's what these reviews are kind of meant to do. It's meant to argue why the game is good, why the game is bad, why your opinion was great or bad. But
is out soon on
continue.
every device but the Switch. What do you think of it? Here's what I do. As always, I buy a copy of every single game, even if the devs give me a code, and give away that game to somebody who subscribes or a patron or somebody who comments. And if you're one of the first 1,000 people to comment, you will be the first 1,000 people to comment, and I thank you. Saints.
That was funny. And if you're one of the first 1,000 people to comment, you will be one of the first 1,000 people to comment. That's amazing, dude. I love that. Oh, he's just funny. He's just funny. Marky, thank you for the sub, my friend. Appreciate you. Luke v. Skillet boxing match. When? Oh, dude, a charity boxing match. I find YouTuber boxing matches and fights so stupid. But I used to be like super into Krav Maga. All through like early college, all through high school, I went to a gym. We worked out 6 days a week. I went hard. And I don't do that like really anymore. I don't keep up on it. But I swear to God, if it was like a fun charity match, I would get back into it and I'd turn into an animal. It would be super fun. Maddie sent me Globe. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear you that you're here. That's wonderful. And thank you, Marky. Yeah, thank you for the sub. Basit, the thing that sets him apart, I think you're talking about Skill Up, I think. While I like your type of essay content more, I can appreciate his content because he comes with the insights off the top of his head. It'd take me hours of scripting to come up with those insights. Yeah, I'm not sure who that. I'm sorry. Oh, Jesus. There's so many of you. I'm so behind in chat already. Oh my goodness. It's such a great problem to have. I'm just not used to it. Oh goodness. Skillman gifted a sub to Kurt. Thank you for the gifted, my friend. It was about Asmongold? Okay. Yeah, no, Asmongold, he just like riffs and he comes up with like really compelling arguments and it's refreshing. I definitely don't like agree with everything he says, but he is a very talented streamer. That's why, like, you watch Asmongold and he is a legend because he's a legend. Like, he's earned it. By the way, yes, everybody, and I know everybody has been worried about this and has been, sitting on the edge of their seats, but no, we do not. Oh, wrong camera. I have the polarizing filter on this. There's a monitor here. It's blacked out because I have a polarizing filter, so you can't see it. It's kind of cool. Like, all right, rotate this. Come on. Yeah, you see that? Still in review. Rotate, and then rotate this, and it goes away. How cool is that? Well, we're still in review. We're waiting for it. This one. Yeah, Devere, you remember when there were only 20-30 people in here? Yeah, that was not that long ago. That was like a month and a half ago. And now there's like, my counter says 228. So thank you everybody who's in here. It's very, very kind of you to be here. I appreciate you. But like, goodness gracious. Yeah, it feels like a few days ago for real. OnlyFans when? Oh, it's out there, but it's under a code name. You just have to think of what the most creative name for somebody named Luke would be. And then you'll figure it out. You just have to be creative and find it. Face reveal at 300,000. Yeah, exactly. This isn't my true form. You haven't even seen it.
Blast out of the gates differently than the original namesake, but at the same time, it does pay a bit of an homage to those original titles. I don't want to spoil all that much of it. I will just say there's a death, maybe some flashbacks. Then you're hired by the Colonel Sanders and military contractors, then fired from that job, only to decide to team up with your friends to make your own gang. If that sounds like plot whiplash,
dude, it looks just like him too. I don't know. Have
from
you
that
guys
job
ever
only to
seen?
decide to team up with your friends
Have you guys ever seen Jeremy without his sunglasses on, and like without the beanie and everything?
to make your own gang. If that sounds
He looks like this. Like this is what he looks like. He's a Viking human being straight out of Oregon. Like he is. Oh, sorry. Jeremy is Carrick's real name, is ACG's real name. So Jeremy Penter, but he looks like that. This is what he looks like, and it's great. It's great.
sounds like plot whiplash, let me tell you, it is. The game is trying to set up the triple threat that we've known of in the prior titles. Your own groups in politics, gangs, and military contract. Here, it's driving you through a tutorial until you're jobless with your poor-ass pals hanging out in an apartment. Speaking of the pals, you got one dude dressed like a leprechaun and Urkel, you have a completely normal woman, and then another dude who has urban beats, lime green on his head, and likes waffles so much he has a tattoo of one on his chest. And to add to this group of misfits, you got...
It's because he's relatable, Carrick. It's because he's relatable.
yourself, your own boss, and that's where that starting customization comes in. Now, I did my best. I like to make characters whose faces look like someplace other people travel to in rocket ships. I made a dude that's a bit like Donnie Trejo's younger brother, Bonnie. There's a good number of options. You can still make some outlandish characters if that's what you want to do. Now, the entire game is driven by the group's desire at first to get a waffle maker, so they break into crime. Then later, they decide to form their own gang to do as you would in these titles. You take on main missions, side missions, local jobs, and activities collections, as well as building out your crime empire by going through the game world and planting out new buildings on empty lots, and then performing jobs that connect to them to increase their weekly take. You pick up bounties, hijack Brinks trucks with helicopters and large magnets, and force out the other gangs all the while. The world's broken into 8 or 9 territories.
See, so for the record, people will look at this and people will point at these things. Oh, this is like you're looking for a waffle maker and then like he's got a waffle tattoo. This is so stupid. The game's terrible. But like this is Saints Row. And when people dismiss it because of that, it just betrays the reality that they haven't played Saints Row before. And that's okay. If you don't, like, if this doesn't appeal to you, that's totally okay. There's no problem. The issue is that when people try to dismiss the game in its entirety because they just don't happen to like this type of game, you know? Like, I know for a fact that I don't personally like those like crazy rhythm games. You see them on like TikTok where people are tapping like ADTHIP question mark, and then they're like going crazy fast as the notes fly by the screen. You've seen those kinds of like rhythm and musical games where you have to keep up on it. I am terrible at them. I don't find them very fun. I find them more annoying than anything else. If I were to do a review of that game, most of the review would just be like, I just don't get it, man. I suck at these. You know, that would be the extent of it. And it wouldn't be compelling. It would be a waste of time, you know? So for me to do that would be stupid. And for somebody else who doesn't like Saints Row humor or like the goofy, outrageous kind of humor to come in and be like, well, it sucks because of this weird, stupid humor. It betrays again the reality that they probably should never have even begun their journey with this, you know? Get rigged, kid. Thank you for the sub. Is somebody going to clip that and turn it into a soundbite? Does that mean something I don't realize? Maybe. Maybe. Well, I don't know. For the record, I'm not familiar with that. I don't know what that means. But Leprechaun Urkel, that's a pretty accurate description. It's just like the other thing, my buddy Corey, I love Corey to death. He doesn't like La La Land. He thinks La La Land is super depressing. And he's like, if I'm going to watch a movie, why would I watch a movie that makes me feel sad? And my mom's the same way. She will not watch a movie that makes her feel sad. Just won't do it. But like to then say, well, La La Land's a horrible movie. Like everybody should hate it. It's just a bad movie. That doesn't follow. Just because you don't personally like movies that have sort of a sad ending doesn't mean that movies with sad endings are inherently bad. I always laugh at the dancing in La La Land. La La Land's a movie, and it's actually pretty good. The music's written by the same guys that did like Greatest Showman and that horrible musical about the kid in school who takes advantage of a kid who commits Roblox on himself. Like, Dear Evan Hansen, I insist, is one of the like most horrible musicals. Not for the music, but for the book, like for the actual story. It's like horrible. I saw it live at the Denver Center for Performing Arts. They brought the big touring production through, and I was just like, it kept getting worse and worse. And I was like, they're making him out to be the good guy, and he's a horrible person. I hope this kid goes to jail. It's horrible. But, you know, it's like, well, but he sings pretty. It's fine. I think it is. The music, not the directors, like specifically the music was written by them. I forget their name. It's like Benji or something.
Territories, each one offering a bit of a different graphical look, like a down and out section, somewhat like the outskirts of Reno, deep city locations with skyscrapers and no end of places to wingsuit, and a ton of spots in between. Now, Nina, Kevin, and Eli, your friends, help you make and take out the missions.
Nina, Kevin, and Eli. That's like a really random assortment of names, but like also generic. Based on what they look like, I would have expected like Quasar, Doorhinge, and Jessica. You know, like,
and most of what
Kevin.
you see, you've seen before in other games. Collecting, grabbing vehicles, taking them back to your own garage to have them unlocked for customizations and colors, and getting into all sorts of trouble. Luckily, doing so, Control doesn't really let you down. It is definitely third-person driving arcadey style, and that's a bit because the developers have aimed to make sure that the vehicles not only are used in combat more, but that each one has its own skill, like kneecap or spikes that come out of your axles and otherwise. Keyboard and mouse and controller can all be adjusted easily with key bindings as well as sensitivity settings, so there's no real harm regardless of what control scheme you choose. I never loved driving with a mouse and keyboard, but it works fine here. Now, you level up a number of things in the game, not only your own empire using the empire desk that has you throw down these buildings wherever you want to expand, but you also update your character as you take on these jobs. Each level usually gives you a skill or a perk, being able to be locked into 4 buttons if it's a skill. So these skills are like dragon punches, gravity grenades, and everything in between, where perks are unlocked almost like
So much of this just sounds like Mafia 3. It just sounds like Mafia 3. You go around the city, you collect different districts, and then they're going to become part of your empire, and they make more or less money depending on how you load them out, you know. It's interesting.
phone memory blocks where you buy.
That's just Carrick. We're on 1.25 speed. Watch what happens when I put it on 1. He sounds the same.
One, and then you add a passive ability into it, like running faster when you're closer to death, triggering less notoriety when doing illegal things, and other passive kinds of skills. Notoriety goes up, of course, as you create more chaos, and you can have different types of notoriety. For example, you can have one for the military contractor or the police. Now, when you fill up the gauge for specials, you can also do takedowns while in combat. If you're close enough, you can trigger an unstoppable killing move, like a series of huge punches, spin kicks, hits with clotheslines, and even a torpedo leap into the enemy's guts. But a great deal of what you're going to be doing is using weapons, and I want to talk about this in particular. While others view the removal of the purple ding-dong bat as some point of focus and a total thematic change, including the developers who couldn't stop talking about it, it's actually much more telling as an indicator of how focused that part was. It's like some kind of calling card to Saints Row for them, where fans who've played the games from first to last remember a massive number of elements that are far beyond that one particular thing. Shotguns, RPGs, assault rifles, SMGs, up-close weapons, including non-lethal ones. Each gun has an upgrade as well as a special ability you unlock in the course of collecting items and finding secrets in the game world. Now, this sense of discovery is spread across all the other items in the game, including the cars, the motorbikes, the boats, and otherwise. Each one has a special ability unlocked in some way, like doing barrel rolls, taking out enemies, or in particular missions, being able to unlock those. And
I do find it really interesting that... My voice cracked like a 12-year-old boy. I do find it interesting that there have been people raging that there's not enough like dildo-themed weapons, which let's just take a moment to appreciate that criticism. You know, like we live in 2022 and there people are actually complaining. I would have bought this product, but there aren't enough dildos. Like we live in idiocracy. It's amazing. But that being said, I those same people are the ones that are like, yeah, but this like outrageous, crazy humor is just, it's not very compelling to me. It's like, oh, so like, which is it? That was just about as outrageous as you possibly could be. You know, what are we talking about? Like, and maybe part of it is that we are kind of split. Like this game splits the fan base. or potential fan base. Half of the people want really outrageous weapons and they want it to be raunchy and just insane. And then the other group was like, oh, I was looking for a reboot that brings it into sort of the 2020s. It grounds it, makes it a little more interesting. Still weird and crazy, but like the characters are more realistic and reasonable, that type of thing. And instead, they kind of went in the middle, and so neither group is really happy now. And maybe that's what's really going on here. Maybe. Or maybe it's just that let's be honest, it's just really fun to hate things. And this is the danger with a lot of this stuff. Every year, and you'll notice this if you look back at the last 10 years of video game releases, every year there has to be one release that everybody unanimously agrees is horrible. There just has to be one. I don't know why. I don't know why it's the case. Maybe it is that every year there just is a horrible game and we can just point to it. But every year there has to be one. And it looks like Saints Row is going to be the one for this year. Some years we get lucky. Some years we get 2 awful releases or 3 awful releases, you know? But like whether it's Cyberpunk being just a total disaster, Ghost Recon, Breakpoint, Assassin's Creed Unity, 2015 would have been probably, what was that? No Man's Sky was 2016. See, 2016 was a fun year because we had Mafia 3, which was a disaster in 2016, and we had No Man's Sky. So we just got like a double whammy, WWE 2K20. Yeah, I saw some videos of that. Yeah, I did see that. There just has to be some horrible release each year. At Mass Effect Andromeda, I think it was 2017. Was that 2017? Or was that 20? Yeah, Clownfield 2042. Fallout 4, I think that disappointed a lot of people in 2015. I still insist, and I think I'm going to do another collaboration with Maddie on this, where I still insist that I think Fallout 4 is not a bad game. I've kind of evolved my position a little bit. It depends on how you play the game. If you go into that game looking for an RPG, it's going to suck and you'll hate it until you get to the DLC, and the DLC is pretty good as an RPG. But if you go into it as like an open world shooter, it's actually pretty good. It's actually not bad. But my problem back in 2015 is I went into it looking for an RPG, and then I was miserable. I was like, this is horrible. This is horseshit. What's going on? I think there's a difference between disappointing and downright bad, as these people give a lot of hate through disappointment. Yes, Electric Saga, you're absolutely right. There is a difference between those two. And the thing with disappointment is there's no clear, quantifiable means of gauging disappointment, because disappointment is almost by definition hearsay to everybody else. It's first person, right? So my level of disappointment in a game is determined by how hyped I was and what my expectations were. Whereas if you didn't have any expectations for Unity and then it turns out it sucks, you won't be disappointed because I kind of expected it to suck. But okay. Whereas if I was super hyped on it and then it releases, I'd be very disappointed. And then I would infer from that it was bad. But that's not necessarily the case. It's just not what I was expecting or looking for. It's like when I saw the behind closed doors preview of Cyberpunk 2077 at E3 2019, a solid 18 months before Cyberpunk launched in December of 2020. When I saw it, I came out of that behind closed doors demo and I said, I don't know, man, it looks like Deus Ex mixed with a really bland open world. It just doesn't look very good. And at that point, I wasn't that stoked on it. I thought maybe I was just being a cynical prick. Maybe. So when I made my video about the show after the fact, when I got back home a few days later, I some of you might have seen that video back in the day, 3 years ago, where I basically just said, Cyberpunk played it really safe. Everything they showed was kind of lame. Just kind of lame. But that was considered a really hot take. That was my way of couching that I thought it didn't look very good. But that is part of what helped me not be super depressed when we got Cyberpunk 2077, because I was like, yeah, it already kind of looked bleh, you know? True Saints Row fans want the grittiness of Saints Row 2 in a modern, innovative game, not more dildos or super over-the-top wackiness. And then Kojo, you're really gatekeeping. It is by definition gatekeeping. I will say that. I mean, to be like, well, true fan, it's the no true Scotsman fallacy, you know? It's like, well, you know, Saints Row fans really like the dildos. No. True Saints Row fans don't want that. We want something else. And same thing with Assassin's Creed fans, do it all the time. Some Assassin's Creed fans really like the open world games. Well, true Assassin's Creed fans really just want the stealth. It's like, no, you mean like old school fan. It's not true. It's not like there's one real group and a fake group. It's just different gradations, you know. Anyway, I remember journalists coming out of that behind the scenes Cyberpunk demo saying it was looking like it could be one of the greatest games of all time. That's one of the reasons I teased Yong Ya so much, because he came out of that same demo and started hyping it up harder than he had ever hyped it up. And it was clearly intended to ride clicks and get people excited because it generated more clicks and more exposure and views. For you to come out and say something nobody wants to hear, which is that the game just doesn't look that remarkable, that's not popular. That's going to piss people off. You'll get hate for it. You could get doxxed with it, you know? Yeah, it's not a real Luke stream without a Yong Ya segment. Exactly. You're damn right.
Switching between those, taking out enemies, driving around, then whipping out your knife for some chopportunities when you go into the special takedown mode is quite enjoyable. But it never really feels like it's doing anything unique or different at all. And you can start to see where that focus might have hurt it. It's like listening to a politician puppy dogging their way through an election by repeating the one bullet point that fits particular blocks that they grew up in, and then not realizing everyone outside of that didn't grow up in that block. So they have no damned idea what he's worried about. And unfortunately,
it's like, you guys remember that thing from 2016 where Rubio like turned into a robot? You guys remember that? It's like, what was his name? The big chunky guy. Governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie. He was on the debate stage with Marco Rubio, and Marco Rubio is like, no, you need to understand, Obama knows exactly what he's doing. And then like Chris Christie was like, you just echoed exactly the talking point you memorized, and you didn't say anything intelligent.
I've been watching your vids for years, Luke. It's been cool to see your much-deserved growth. Cheers.
Well, thank you, Kip Sock, and I appreciate you, and thank you for watching for so long. That's tremendous. And thank you for the 2 months in a row. You're on your way, getting the streak going. I appreciate you. Thank you. But it was just like, it was so tremendous because right after he finishes saying, he just repeated a memorized talking point. And then Rubio was like, well, I hear what he's saying, but this is the thing to understand. Obama knows exactly what he's doing, even down to his hand motion being the exact same. And he's like, you just said the same thing. But this is why it's so important, because Obama knows exactly what he's doing. It was like a broken record. It was tremendous. And that's exactly what he's talking about here. You got to like shake yourself out of it.
Fortunately, this rolls out to the missions themselves. They are exactly what you expect with nothing unique. You go to a location, you take out various actions, you become a taxi for one guy, fighting off enemies for another, taking out leaders, and helping out your main leaders as well. After a while, you can upgrade and customize the gang itself, change their look, adjust their cars that they drive around, and
can you just like delete them and get rid of them like permanently? Just so you don't have to deal with them. Almost completely done with Blood and Wine on the Land of a Thousand Fables right now. Oh, that's tremendous. That's tremendous. Yeah, the Land of a Thousand Fables, and then you can also go back and do the Detlef path, where you go with him. It's actually pretty good. So if you have a save file, I would actually, once you're done, go back through and do the Detlef path. It's actually dark and gritty. It's pretty good. Looks like an I'll wait for a sale. Well, he's about to get into the, like, this is kind of how he breaks these things down. he explains the game very precisely and carefully, and then he's going to start explaining why and where the problems are. And so far it's all been like kind of fun and silly, but he's about to get into the real problems. But yeah, it's about to pick up. Everyone just remember, major publishers of AAA games pay for positive reviews. Especially sus reviews are the ones from journalists who got early review copies. Well, what I've said before, stock market is like the way that this tends to work is it's not that people like whoever Deep Silver, I think they published this. Deep Silver isn't writing a check. They're not writing $15,000 to whatever. They have in the past, not Deep Silver specifically, but there have been publishers in the past who will sponsor like Jack Frags, or they'll sponsor Tim the Tatman or somebody to play their game. And it's heavily implied, hey, we're going to pay you. You can play the game early, stream it, make a video. We just really think that you need to touch on these tremendous gameplay improvements we made and talk about the amazing new features present in the game. And if we just want you to talk it up and share it with your audience who would really appreciate knowing about the game. We just want you to share info about it. I mean, we can't have you like bashing the game because it's not out yet and things might change, but we just would really like you to share it with your fans and let people know about it. That's what they do. And so there are some cases where the studio pays for promotion, but it's not really a review. Like, it's not going to go up on Metacritic. But you're going to get like Tim the Tatman being like, hey guys, check out the new Call of Duty Vanguard. It looks super lit, bro. Swag, no cap. And people are going to see that and think that it's like, they'll probably interpret that as a review and an endorsement, when in reality, he's just getting a big check for it. But for these reviews, you guys are right. What he's doing, or what sometimes happens, is they'll go to these smaller publishers or these smaller journalists and websites. They'll give them a review code, which doesn't cost them anything. It's just a digital code. And they'll be like, yeah, you can review the game. Here's the embargo, sign all of this stuff, even though you have a very small website. Doesn't matter to us. But you do this, and then we will, be in touch. We'll be in touch with extra stuff. And the thing playing in the back of their heads is that if they are particularly harsh to the publisher, they might not get the next review code. Because if the publisher is sending stuff to reviewers and the reviewer is bashing it, they just don't get much benefit from it. So why would they send it to you? It's why Bethesda doesn't talk to me anymore, because I said that they were kind of evil with what they did with Fallout 76. I stand by it. I said it. I got blacklisted by them. So now I don't get those review codes. They don't respond to my emails. They just pretend I don't exist. Maybe it'll change once they get new Xbox people in there, but it's funny that, yeah, they have thin skin. Say what you will about Ubisoft. I bash their games regularly. I said Assassin's Creed Valhalla was a travesty of open world design, and they still send me games. They still send me cool stuff. Like, they are like, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but like, here's a free like collector's version of Orlog, it's pretty good. So say what you will about Ubisoft, but they've always been very, very good. Whereas Bethesda, like some of the thinnest skinned marketing people I've ever seen, at least back as of like 3 years ago. They were horrible 3-4 years ago. I mean, ACG love their reviews and looks as well. They're the main two reviews I look for when buying a new game I'm thinking of buying. I want to do more reviews. I would love to do more reviews, but for some reason, it's just really, really tough to get these review codes. I think it's because the companies look at my videos and see that I do like 2-hour breakdowns of games, and I don't tend to be super forgiving. So they're like, he's gonna be mean to us. I don't want to send it to him. Who knows? I'm telling you, dude, that's how marketing executives, like how some of these people talk to you, where they don't say, oh no, you have to talk about our game. They say, we just really want you to share it with your audience and promote it and get them really excited about it. You know, we just want you to do it. I've been offered so many sponsorships from video game developers. And the thing I've said, I was like, hey, listen, if I'm going to make a video on a game and you want to pay me to just make the video I was already going to make, like, yeah, of course, I'll take a check. Who cares? The thing is, you do not get to tell me what I'm going to say. I will say if I love it, I will say if I hate it. If I run into bugs, I'll show the bugs. If I run into issues, I'll show the issues. You don't get to tell me what to do. I won't make just bland, like, hype pieces. It doesn't work. It's not going to happen. And I've lost out on potentially tens of thousands of dollars, but I don't do that type of thing. So if you guys ever see like a video where I'm like doing a preview event for a game, then you'll know that they agreed specifically that I could say whatever the hell I want. Because I won't accept it otherwise. Doesn't matter. Like so many of these like Raid Shadow Legends, they're like, yeah, no, do a video on it. You could do a 30-minute breakdown critique of it. But we just really ask that you not like, criticize it. Because, I mean, we are paying you. I'm like, I don't think you know what critique means. I do not think that word means. I do think it means. Yeah, you hate Valhalla. Would you hate it if we made a Luke Stevens themed axe? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe. Luke gives a negative review. Marketing dude, it's a nice Twitch stream you have. Would be a shame if something happened to it. I wonder sometimes what happens with some of these people. Like, I don't know. There's been some cases of reviewers who, like, after they say some really nasty things, get like sometimes it's a little aggressive what they say. But I saw a couple of videos of people, like some big channels, who were tearing down some other games. And just after that, they start getting all sorts of like YouTube copyright and like not advertiser friendly notifications. I'm like, did somebody at the company make a call to YouTube headquarters and ask for a favor? Like, it's a total conspiracy theory, but like it was a little sus, a little sussy. I remember someone might have been Jim Sterling back in the day, got blacklisted by Bethesda after reviewing Fallout 4. But yeah, Bethesda just in general is very weird. Very weird about criticism. They don't handle it well. They like shut down. They won't talk to you. They got a big head on their shoulders for being a company that made one of the worst games in history.
Basically take more charge. That doesn't mean there aren't some fun missions in there. For example, the cosplay missions. I'm not going to say much about this, but you help out one of your teammates in a huge LARP that's across the world with different weapons, car designs, fake cardboard armors. Hell, even the characters in the game react differently when you're using those weapons in the game world. That is very cool. During some of the missions, you can also call your pals to hang out and take down the missions with you. And this can help a good deal if you have the difficulty up harder, or if you just run into something that seems just harder to actually do. However, be aware that the AI for friends can span from fine to absolutely out of control. One of the big points is that sometimes they'll leap into cars or motorbikes to follow you, ignoring your car even if you honk the horn right beside them. Other times they don't, and they just jog behind you like a dog left at home whenever you go to the beach. Other times they teleport around the game world behind you, fading into view, getting hit by cars, killing pedestrians with their own. It's random. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason between what their choices are, and that hurts the game immensely, especially when some of the missions themselves require you to be a little bit safer or play it a little bit differently.
It's like the opposite problem of Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk had it so like the enemy spawns were really inconsistent and they would disappear behind you and then appear randomly. Like it was its own issue. But then with this, it's like they teleport to just be behind you no matter where you are on the map. They don't just randomly appear. So it's weird.
Huge misstep. It would have been a lot nicer to be able to force them into the vehicle with you, or maybe force them to get into another vehicle, but I could never figure that out. Also, they should toggle this somewhat like the AI's mission following escort missions AI, because those guys are so far up your ass, they should get colostomy bonuses at the end of the missions. Those guys are always tracking you, and yet your own AI doesn't. The game does have full co-op, which allows for people to jump into each other's games with their own boss and engage in missions with the other person. So that is very nice, and it definitely does help when the AI for the game itself isn't the greatest. Something I've talked about for years is the use of Microsoft's accessibility controller and its changes that have been allowed, but here we see a good number of graphical and control changes.
That's crazy. Look at that. They allow you to customize everything from ammo scarcity, notoriety difficulty, enemy durability, timed objective difficulties, so you can make that so the timer for missions is harder or less. This is straight up the best example of why I hate difficulty sliders. Okay, before I say this, let me be clear. I love accessibility options. I think it's great to enable and empower more gamers to play your game. Like, that's great. No problem there. But this is just an excuse to basically not balance your game. Like, this is a little ridiculous. It's just a little ridiculous. Because now, if you're like, hey, the ammo is like everywhere. There's way too much ammo around the map. Like, why even have ammo if it's just everywhere? So I never run out, you know? Like, why is it even a thing? Well, if you think there's too much ammo, you can just decrease the ammo scarcity slider and find it, and then it'll be more rare. Okay, why didn't you do that? Why didn't the developers do that? Or the like tough enemies. There's way too many of them in the map. Way too many. It's like they're not even tough enemies anymore. They're just the regular brutes. Oh, well, if you find that there's too many tough enemies, you can actually toggle down the tough enemy frequency slider and make it easier for yourself. Okay. Your job is to balance this. Your job is to figure this out and to craft the most balanced experience based on your vision for the game. To do this, like, you're just putting it on the player and then being like, they'll figure it out and put it where they want. It's just not, like, it doesn't work. It's so stupid.
And control changes as well. Super high contrast versions, HUD changes, even the ability to massively adjust the timed objective difficulty up and down, turning it all the way off. But it doesn't stop there. Something we've talked about in the Walking the Walk videos, the game also allows for you to toggle almost every single action in the game between a button press and a hold. This allows for things like acceleration, drift, reverse looking.
Show nipples, force underwear, blood, gore, brutal. So if you do this, maybe they like pixelate it out for guys?
So to be done that way. So if you hate holding down the thumbstick to look behind you while you're in a mission, you can just tap it once, boom, switch that easily, and the game is actually much more enjoyable that way. And those adjustments continue, allowing you to change the game to put the subs all in caps, the reticle size, minimap size, adjusting all the settings for the mission driving indicators, and more. It takes all of these parts and tries to make a Saints Row game out of it. But what's interesting is they may have taken the one cohesive concrete element that allowed for Saints Row to be itself, which is poking fun at other open world games as well as the world itself. And when they've put the more mundane things in there that we expect, even focusing more on the action, like a lot of the impressions that the developers have talked about particular fictions they look forward to, for example, the Fast and Furious movies. But what's interesting about Saints Row is it wasn't just the sexual innuendo in the game, which was there, but it wasn't everything. But a good fan will have so many other experiences of over-the-top bits. This has shifted so dramatically to one side that it's shown that a lot of open world games with just a boatload of activities doesn't always make a good open world game. Saints Row feels like the future of modern open world games, where the narrative's so milquetoast and laid back and lacking in anything that's interesting to say, but the actions still sort of mimic the same things the prior games did. The murder, the mayhem, through its reflection of today's day and age mentalities, that's fine. But it also, at the same time, mows down any real elegance in delivering something that's worth really watching or playing. And instead, what you get is a game that feels a little bit like some kind of buffet where everything wasn't seasoned. And once
It's a good way of putting it. And I think there's a really good point to be made about Saints Row in general, is that, like he said, it's supposed to be, if GTA is a commentary on American culture and society and how outrageous it is, Saints Row has been a commentary on the outrageous open world games that are a reflection of American society and pop culture. So it's like one step removed, right? And it just seems like for this game, they completely lost track of that and just turned it into a generic, bland open world game that doesn't have anything unique to offer. And that's been the common thread through all of these critiques so far, is that people have said that it just doesn't have anything unique to offer. It's all just bland, more of the same. Let's watch Maddie's intro real quick, because I talked to Maddie a little bit while he was making the review, and he had some funny things to say. So let's see what Maddie thinks.
Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today, sitting down for my review of Saints Row. Let's dive into the deep end, shall we? This game, from top to bottom, was absolutely technically broken, and it was a complete displeasure to play. It takes a lot for something to piss me off, let alone a video game. Very blessed to do this for a living, by the way. So when I finish a game and I walk away pissed off, that is mighty impressive for a game to achieve, because it is exceedingly rare. About as exceedingly rare as this game just working. But from top to bottom, Saints Row is broken, and I wasted 30 plus hours of my life on this game. The bugs, the glitches, aplenty. Combat AI not working unless engaged upon. The lighting completely broken, making it very visually distracting. The traffic loading before your very eyes, and sometimes just outright disappearing. The world feels barren, empty. The missions never work. The amount of times I had to reload was downright infuriating. And not only that, the final mission in the game broke on me 4 times, including one crash. A new mechanic each time didn't work. And the sad news is that beneath the bugs and glitches here, you patch it all up, you polish it to a shine, it does not matter, because Saints Row is the perfect representation of creative bankruptcy within AAA gaming. And I know some of you may think I just have a thing against checklist open worlds. I can really dig them. I loved, for example, Ghost of Tsushima, which I think fits right into that category. But Saints Row just comes up with no ideas, despite having the perfect platform to go as crazy as they want to. Because as many of you know, with the drama surrounding Saints Row, people wanted them to go in the more serious Saints Row 1 and 2 direction. They took it in the 3 and 4 direction to go more comedic, more crazy. And I thought to myself, as someone who was on the outside, media blackout, this could be a fun time. That's all that really matters with Saints Row. I don't care about the writing, I don't care about the story, which, by the way, despite it not being the focus, was a downright insult. I'll get into that in a moment. But as long as it's fun, right? And it couldn't even get that. It did not embrace any of its ideas. It's a game with an identity crisis through and through, and I'm here to break it all down. But if you need the too long, didn't read, do not touch this game. And now the rest is me explaining why. So with that, if you're new here, you're into reviews, consider subscribing. Let's talk about Saints Row.
Shout out to Maddie.
I gotta talk.
I was like, I won't pause it there. Shout out to Maddie. He makes great stuff. If you're not subbed to him, head over there, give a sub, tell him I sent you. He's a good dude and he does really good work. But this is something that, like, the anger you feel when your time is wasted is palpable with some of these games. Like, I've had that with what was it? Man of Medan. Man of Medan is the last game that made me, like, actually mad. And I paid 30 whatever bucks for it. Maybe 40 bucks, whatever it was when it was just launched. And I played it and it was just unfunny, uninteresting. The writing was terrible. The voice acting was terrible. Technically, it was horrible. everything about it was just bad. It just was bad. And then it just is like over as quick as it began. And I was actually mad that I wasted time and money on it. And like, there's been a couple of other games here and there, but the one weird thing with like reviews is that once you agree to do it, they send you the code, you sign an NDA, and sign it, but it's on usually DocuSign. But you sign the NDA, and you then have agreed to do it. So they give you the code, and then you need to make the review. And if you don't want to get like blacklisted, they can in some cases even go after you for like penalties. It's very, very rare, but one game I did it where they were like, if you don't end up doing a review of the game, you will owe us for the review code. So you'll owe us for the copy of the game effectively. So I like that sometimes happens, but you basically have made the commitment to make the review on it. And if you're going to do a review on it, you're going to play the whole game. But sometimes the game is just horrible. Thank you, Scrubby Bubbles. Thank you for the sub. So you've agreed to make the review, so you got to play the damn thing. And sometimes when it's like a 30-hour game like this one, you're then in it for the whole ride. Some people will stop, like if the game is really horrible and just broken, they're going to be like, like that Prey review from IGN where that guy ran into the game-breaking bugs and gave Prey a 4 out of 10. Because he was like, it's literally broken. I cannot get to the end of the game. Even working with the developers, providing me a review code and individual save files for each chapter, I still can't finish the game because it's so broken on this PC. So he gave it a 4 out of 10 and he just couldn't finish it. But with this, like, it's 30 hours. You can finish it. It just takes constant reloading. It takes constant BS to try to juggle it. Broken missions, broken animation. Like, everything's just horrible, you know? After such reviews, this game will be free as PlayStation Plus Game of the Month in 2 months. You're not wrong, for real. Or they'll bring it to Game Pass or whatever. Because it's just, yeah. I enjoyed your No Man's Skyrim collab with Maddie. Great insights. Yeah, I appreciate you. I'm doing another one with him. I don't think he's posted it yet, but I did another one with him where we talk a little bit more about Starfield from like my more skeptical position. So that'll be going up on his channel at some point. Yeah, we've been having a good time with that. I'm also working on a couple of other collabs that are in the works, so buckle up. I can't imagine how the people who reviewed Cyberpunk 2077 at launch got through the game. A lot of them just like, well, it was totally broken, but imagine those people that got through it and still hyped it up. I had so many issues on PC like weeks after launch that I was like, yeah, this thing is broken. But like, it's just, yeah, anyway, lots of people at launch still made excuses for it, still said, well, it's still a like game of the generation, but it's just like, it's a little buggy. And then when it hit the public, everybody's like, no, this is just broken. And they're like, oh yeah. Didn't most play on PC? They didn't send out console review codes. Yeah, I was in talks with the whatever marketing lady for North America with CD Projekt Red. I sent emails with her back and forth and her team. And I even filled out the paperwork, signed the NDA, and said, I want these codes. I said a PC code, and I think I said Xbox code. And I was like, give me those codes, and I can cover both platforms, and I'll do it. I never got codes for PC or console. And I don't think Maddie did either. And I asked Maddie, I think it was Maddie, but whoever, I'm pretty sure, I'm like 95% sure it was Maddie. And I asked him, like, did you not get a code? And he's like, no, but I also requested a console. So like, maybe that was it. And then I started looking around, and every YouTuber who requested a console code didn't get any. But if you requested just a PC code, you got your code. That's another one of the cases where I'm like, CDPR knew what they were doing, withholding those console codes to try and get people to still buy it. That is like, that should be, and I think it is, straight up illegal. They are intentionally withholding information from customers so that they don't find out the game is broken. And they buy it based on a reviewer's impression of a PC port, which is still broken, but isn't broken as bad. That's why I said it was like straight up horrifically not okay. But I mean, what are you going to do? People still watch those guys. Who cares? ACG was one of the only big reviewers who didn't hype the game along with Extra Life. Yeah, a lot of there are still, I know it's easy to bash, but there are some reviewers that did not hype it up. There's a select few who still hyped it up and then tried to renege on all of it after the fact and be like, "Oh no, I it's still bad. Like it's really broken. It's really disappointing." But don't see through it. That's why some people. Yeah, and then those same guys, they go back through and they unlist and delete all of the videos that they posted hyping it up to try and scrub the internet of their hyping it up, because they realize it looks really bad now.
Talk about the bugs and glitches first, because normally I do story,
This
gameplay,
is wonderful. All the bugs and
include
glitches.
Bugs and glitches in the gameplay section, but this game, congrats, has earned its own section for that. That's mighty impressive. You must be really broken for that to happen. You know what games also got that? Games like, I don't know, Crossfire X, Fallout 76, the list goes on.
I love the Persona music. Also, for the record, yes, I saw a couple comments, people like, oh, he makes excuses for Bethesda but he's going to bash this game for it. For the record, we can all agree, I think, that Bethesda and the crap they pull with bugs where they put out broken games and just hope that the modders fix it, that is unacceptable. And that is highly unethical, in my opinion, to just rely on your customers to fix it. It would be like selling somebody a car, but you're like, well, they're really handy and they have, like, he works as a mechanic, so it's fine. Like, no, it's still unethical to sell somebody a broken product that you know is broken and then you excuse it away by saying, they'll fix it. It's whatever. It is unethical. It just is. So that's a problem. I don't know if, like, when I talked to Maddie the other day, we touched on this a little bit. I don't think he makes excuses for the bugs. I think he just has a high bug tolerance. So he can play a game, call out the bugs, but it's not going to, like, bugs don't inherently ruin the experience of the game for him, right? So, like, playing Fallout New Vegas, even today, there are bugs. You will run into bugs. But that doesn't ruin the game. It doesn't have to, at least. So for Maddie to come out and be like, yeah, the bugs are so bad that it, like, straight up ruined the game. This is still a problem. That should be indicative of how bad it is.
Not a really impressive track record there, but let's go on, shall we? So again, the empty open world. It's apparent right when you drop in, something with this game is wrong. The world is positively lifeless because it feels like this game is built on the most brittle sticks of all time. And if the foundation crumbles, it's all gonna fall apart. The optimization here was just downright poor because, again, the world feels dead. There are even quest bugs that are beyond actually the missions themselves. Sometimes it's just a GPS waypoint, bringing me to a completely different spot on the map, or causing me to reroute endlessly until finally I'm like, I don't even know where the mission is, and then I guess around and it finally reorients me. The GPS tracker in an open world game just does not work. And we're not talking about, something like Elden Ring where it's, artistically guided so you can get around without any type of waypoint tracking. Not here. Nope. There's an incessant amount of pop-in. There's a ton of quest bugs. The combat AI is broken, as I said earlier, so combat itself is not very fun. Like, you just stand there, shoot people until they're dead, and move on. And I know that's how you describe pretty much any first or third person shooter in a very simple way, but I mean just stand there and shoot them. You really barely have to move around when the game's functioning in its best state. Like, it's just boring and broken, and that can be the worst, most deadliest combination in a video game. You know me, I'm not a graphics person. I'm predominantly focused on art style, but when a game's graphics are bad, typically I don't care. But this game, I legitimately had to check to make sure like I was using a Series X and S version, which is automatic given it was smart delivery. My brain was like, go check just to make sure. This game does not look good. In fact, again, because of the pop-in, because
It really reminds me of Crackdown too. Does it not have like the same vibe as Crackdown? It's like, it's not cell shaded, but everybody's skin is like weirdly luminescent. So people just glow weirdly.
because of the
Like,
items,
it gives
and
me mad
people
Crackdown
and
vibes.
cars loading before me. I was like, this is functioning like a last gen version. It looks like a last gen version. This is absolutely terrible. It just does not work. And I could have pulled my hair out because of my experience. So I just had to put up front and personal because I know people will come to this video, defend the honor of Saints Row. I'm not here to detract from your favorite series. Saints Row goes a ways back for me. My first ever review code in the industry was Saints Row 4. I have a soft spot for this series, but I can't. Like, this game just isn't good as a video game, and it doesn't work as a video game. So I just had to put up front and personal here.
Oh, that was great. Oh, that's great. Now we're talking. Count me in.
Video game, and it doesn't work as a video game. So I just had to put up front and personal here. The game is broken. Let's talk about the rest of it now.
Wow.
The story. So the setup is about as bad.
Oh, I wonder if he's going to talk about the intro. So when you guys play it, the intro sequence, like, again, Saints Row is outrageous. If you remember back in the day, the like alien abduction thing in the White House in whatever, was that 4? All craziness, wild stuff. But the intro to this game is like so painfully unfunny. It's just extremely awkward. It's weird.
Bad as you'd expect, but given the fact that the
I don't know
game
if he's
is
gonna talk
comedically
about it,
driven,
though.
I kind of think that's okay, right? That's to be expected. It doesn't have to make a lot of sense logically. It could just be dumb fun. And dumb fun isn't bad in video games. In fact, it's sorely missed in a lot of them with these games that take themselves very seriously. It's appreciated that there's a game out there, especially in this case in a AAA space, that says, let's just do something crazy and dumb. But I gotta take the internet's favorite word when it is as cringe-inducing as this game is. I might have taken something trying to be serious again. And I don't want to review a game based off what I want versus what it is, but I don't know why or how certain lines of dialogue got passed into the final build of this game, but they did, and good Lord Almighty. Let's talk.
Fall in line, my big sweaty goddamn motherfucking ass.
So you start off your adventure as a member of Marshall, this sort of mercenary
Get that man an Oscar.
group in this brand new setting. I gotta say that this kind of explains why your character is good with guns, and they give him a bit of a backstory. I'm like, okay, cool. They're actually going to this effort here. From there, you and your friends that you live in an apartment with are all a part of separate gangs in this open world
Oh, look at those shadows, dude. Those shadows are straight broken. Look at the shadow from his cap and then the shirt.
setting, and eventually everyone gets screwed over. You lose your job with the Marshals. Everyone's dirt poor, and we need to pay rent. Yes, really. That is the turning point for the game. We need to pay rent for our apartment. What do? We start a goddamn criminal empire. Let's do this. Again, kind of leaning into, oh, this is just so dumb, we can do it. But eventually you start to lose favor with the audience when you just keep leaning into the idea of like, this is stupid, we can do it because it's a dumb, fun game. When you hear dialogue like this,
Sandy Kraken does not stand alone. Tapeworm is here in your hour of need.
Let this be the hour when we draw fake guns together.
To the keep!
you, the developer, try to take advantage of the audience receiving it as, oh, this is dumb fun, so we can do endless dumb things, but none of those dumb things are fun. You know, remember like the UFO missions in like Saints Row 3 or something crazy like that? You're not going to find any of that here. They just use it as excuses to right away fun gameplay objectives and get uncreative with things. Like they're thinking about, you know, robbing a train or something. And what do they do and sit there and think, oh, we could do this or that? They just go and say, why don't we just shoot the place up? Yeah, sure, that sounds great. And that's it. And I'm like, my God, like the writing here just constantly goes down the same pathway. They don't want to create any fun mission objectives, because Saints Row is a series that has become known for its wild vehicles, wild weapons, the crazy rampages that you can just go on, right? And this game, imagine a Saints Row game that has that comedic edge, or at least it's going for it, but it just never gives you the tool set that comes with that comedic edge. So you're playing almost this like very serious third-person shooter, and that's really it in a horrible comedy.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Thank you, by the way, not the feds, for the sub. Thank you. I didn't miss it. I was just trying to get to a good pausing point. Appreciate you. Thank you for subbing. This is the same crap that goes on with freaking, I mean, it's constant, but like for Death Stranding, this is what I brought up a few times. Death Stranding did, fanboys and girls did this all the time. So like, just because something is explained in the story doesn't make it good. Okay, so just because they came up with an excuse for why they're doing it doesn't make it good. That just means they made up an excuse and justified it some way. But this is something that happens time and time again with these types of games, where like with this, I'm sure there's going to be fanboys and girls out there who are going to look at it and be like, well, yeah, it's outrageous and there's stupid stuff that they say, but that's part of it. That was intentional. They meant to do that because it's outrageous. It's supposed to be silly. And I get it. It's justified in the story, but that doesn't make it good. Get the difference? Like, there's a difference there. You know, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can put something in the game because you explained it away, however, doesn't mean that you should put that in the game. Just because, like, in Death Stranding, the total lack of wildlife is explained by the timefall doesn't mean that the lack of any other life in the game is good. Like, it's still bad and it makes the world feel lifeless. Just because it's explained doesn't make sense. Same with, like, if in this game, oh, the city streets are empty because it's supposed to be like, you know, COVID's going on and so everybody's in quarantine. So, okay, well, you just explained why the streets are empty, but the streets are still empty. It still feels like the world's not alive and breathing, you know? Like, there's all these possible explanations for stuff that doesn't make it good. It's important to distinguish that. Anyway, Ray Horney, I like that. Hey, Luke, just came from the New Vegas video. Finally caught a stream. I'm glad. Thanks for coming by. Good to see you. Good to see you. Did they have deer in the one scene in Death Stranding? Yeah, exactly. So that was my main problem with Death Stranding, with the wildlife specifically, is that I was like, in the opening cutscene, they have animals. Like, you see the birds flying, one drops dead in front of Sam, and then you see the deer skipping over, but they're not actually in the open world, even though clearly they exist in this world and they have for a long time. Once you start exploring, they're just not there anymore. And some people are like, well, it's because the timefall would cause them to die if they ever got touched by it. I'm like, but they're alive in the opening cutscene. You can see them. What are you talking about? Like, that opening cutscene isn't the beginning of Timefall. Like, that Timefall has already existed in the world. They just showed deer and birds because they wanted it to be cool and show like what happens when organic life hits that timefall. Oh, it makes them age and like decay and everything, and it kills them. But like, it's just not present in the game. It's just not there. Yeah, Death Stranding is beautiful. And again, I say this as somebody who regularly plays Death Stranding to this day. I play it on my Steam Deck almost daily whenever I'm putting like Lachlan down for a nap or we're doing quiet time and I just am looking for something to relax with. I still enjoy the game. I play it all the time. But I can still call out the crap present in this. It's like you'll see in the collab I did with Maddie that'll go up on his channel at some point soon, I assume. It's okay to have a nuanced position. And I just want to encourage people to have more nuanced positions than this game is amazing and this game is terrible. This game is a generation-defining masterpiece, and this game is the worst thing to ever release. Like, there is gradation there are gradations within that. You can have a more nuanced position. I can like Death Stranding, but still think it has problems. I can think that Valhalla is a solid game for 20 hours and then it falls apart in the last portion. You know, there are gradations. There are gradations. Sup, Skills? Good to see you. Hello, hello. I just realized the new Saints Row game looks like Fast and Furious Crossroads. I wonder if they know that. Did Maddie publish it? I'm sorry, I haven't. Like I said, I've been at a wedding and juggling crap for the last few days, so I've been a bit out of the loop. So my bad. I was gonna publish this Spider-Man video today. Oh, it's a babe.
Hey, we gotta go back upstairs.
Oh, okay. Oh, hey, dude. Hey, dude.
Okay, kiss.
Mwah. I love you. Have a good time, Miss Paisley. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. This is beautiful. Wonderful. But the wedding was wonderful. They're amazing people, adorable people. It's just some of the sweetest human beings you'll ever meet in your life. It's wonderful to see them get together. But what was I saying? Yeah, I was going to publish a Spider-Man video this morning, but YouTube just reviewed it and found it not advertiser friendly. So I've got to figure out why they did that and then go back and tweak it again and mess with it. So it'll probably go live tomorrow. By the way, everybody, tomorrow I will be back streaming as well for Gamescom. So we will be here streaming that. So come by and see it. There's going to be a lot of stuff that they show off that I'm pretty interested in, including a new Hogwarts Legacy trailer. I have a very good feeling, allegedly, we might just see that we get an announcement for something from a company that maybe made like a pretty realistic night game, you know, maybe sort of kind of. We might just see something. I have a good feeling about it. I won't say more than that because I don't want to get in trouble. Let's
That's
continue.
Saints Row. And I gotta say, this game's unfunny. And I don't like unfunny. I know comedy is not easy in video games. Timing is a big part of comedy. You want to make sure that what you're delivering can not only deliver now, but to stand the test of time. Like any piece of entertainment with comedy, it's difficult to write. So I get it. But again, it stands to the reason where if you're not going to get creative with your humor, you're not going to get creative with the gameplay to kind of uplift the humor, then why do it in the first place? Again, identity crisis. So what you're doing is, yes, establishing the Saints as a criminal empire because everyone's been booted out of their respective groups. And you're like, well, let's take over the city ourselves. So that's where things really kick off. Let's get into the gameplay because a lot of this is built around the criminal empire, which is on paper a really great system that I could see a lot of fun being had with it. But unfortunately, it sets up the biggest narrative roadblock we have seen since Mafia 3. Mafia 3 being a open world game, I do have a bit of a soft spot for because the way it captures its era is so powerful and so good.
I absolutely agree. The world building in Mafia 3, when it works, is tremendous. They did have to get rid of some of the music. So they used to play like Elvis on the radio and stuff. And I think they lost the licensing rights to that after like 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. It was like last year. But yeah, they really did a tremendous job. It's great.
That I can sort of allow its mundane, repetitive gameplay objectives to exist. But in the case of Saints Row, that is not the gameplay template you copy. I don't know who at Volition thought this was a great idea, but this is not the one you copy. So what happens is in your criminal empire, you will establish businesses, and these businesses will generate you money that you can spend on new clothes, new guns, upgrades for your guns, all sorts of vehicles. That stuff sounds great, and it can be great. But what happens is some of the main story objectives bar you from progression until you complete these criminal ventures. So let's say you set up, I don't know, a business in a laundromat, which is actually a human disposal service. So what you do is run that mission 8 different times over the course of like 2 to 3 hours to check off one of your criminal ventures when you got to finish 3 or 4 for the next main story mission. You know, I just want to roll with the story sometimes. Like, I like that there's open world options. That's great. We'll talk about them in a moment. But I just want to roll with the main story. But the game bars you off and forces you to participate in these mundane, repetitive activities, and it hurts the game. Remember with Mafia 3 in the case where the story was actually pretty damn good, and if you could just go through the story and occasionally participate in open world stuff, you would have a really good time with this game, and you'd be really impressed with it, or at least I would have been. That's kind of the case here, but imagine the story's awful, the writing's terrible, the gameplay is absolutely tragic. And that's what you've got with Saints Row, like the actual skeleton of Mafia 3, but none of the good parts about it. So
That's a very apt comparison. That's good. And I'm loving the bringing up Mafia 3 thing. I played through that on stream recently. I posted the video where I tried it again. And that's like, he's right. The gameplay is serviceable. Like, it's good enough to get through. But it's not like, it's not good. It's good enough. But the story is so good that it keeps you going. You know, and the cutscenes are really good, so they keep you going. And the world building's phenomenal, so it keeps you going. But with this, there's no like upside. It's all downside.
I mentioned the open world. It's got a lot going on here. Every district has its set of threats, side hustles, which are your side missions. There are discoveries that you can make, and you can bring them back to your Saints Row base set up at the church, and you can decorate the base however you see fit. There are various stores that you can shop at. There's these side hustles known as Atcha, where you leave reviews and they turn into horde modes. There's choplifting, where you can get into like a helicopter and fly around. There's wanted missions, where you can go around the map and take out enemies for additional cash. There's plenty of things to do in this game. Unfortunately, none of them are really diverse enough and make use of the tool set that exists within the game. A lot of the missions, especially the main story missions, devolve into like Gears of War judgment level defend this area type stuff while you listen to NPCs drone on with absolutely terrible jokes. It is a insufferable experience at times, and it's a shame because, again, I think the loop here actually could have been good if it existed to the side of the story, and by the way, the game worked, but it just isn't fun, and it doesn't make enough fun with the ideas it has. It just feels like you're really, truly checking off boxes. Like those threats I mentioned. You'll go to an area, blow up one van. You completed it. Good job. You'll go to another area, killed like 3 enemies, completed it. Good job. And it's just a rinse and repeat where there's no ambition.
This is the thing I think that happens when you have a big team working on these games without a cohesive and coherent vision behind it. Because how a lot of these studios work is they get, like, say, the map. The map is one of the first things that they build out. And then they start to build quests for you to engage with. And so they have questing designers go, and they're like, hey, you're going to work in quadrant C58, because they do it on a grid. You're going to work in C58, make a quest line there. And it's just going to be like, you know, it's just a side content, maybe one of these side activities that we've talked about doing. Okay, I can do that. So they start messing with it, and they throw something together, and they plop these things in. And then the next day or the next week, they're assigned, you're going to go over to A52 in that quadrant and build a side quest there. Okay, yeah, I'll do that. And then they go over there and they do something there. But the whole rest of the team is doing the same thing on all the other quadrants. So it seems like there's a ton of content in the game, because on paper there is, but in terms of the quality and the diversity, it's just not there. It's just not there. And one of the differences is, like, one of the reasons I said that Assassin's Creed Odyssey was such an impressive open world RPG is because literally every side quest has a story tied to it. And it's something the developers talked about in interviews before it launched. And it's true. Every side quest you do, every side activity you do in that game has a story, at least like a 3-act mini story tied to it. It could be something as simple as old lady and her husband aren't getting together, they're not getting along. So this side quest is basically a fetch mission, a fetch quest, but she wants you to go and find this rare plant in this middle of nowhere on the side of a mountain. And then with that plant, she can then brew some tea, which is like an aphrodisiac or some crap. And that'll basically help him get it up so that they can get together and everything will be great. And then maybe one of the little gags is like that you go to like her and then you bring the tea and then she's like, oh, you want some too? You can join us. And then you can choose to join in the menage a trois. That whole, like, that's a fetch quest. That could have been something extremely dumb. You go to an old lady, she says, hey, can you get me this random plant? I need it. Then you go, you bring the plant, and then you get the XP and the cash payout and you move on. That could have been all they did. That could have been it. But instead, they go and add the extra layer of story. And now, 3-4 years after I played that mission for the first time, it's still present in my mind. And it was a stupid fetch quest. But because they had a story tied to it, it's memorable, it's unique and different. And that's what's not present here. You have to put that extra effort in to have a story tied to these side quests. You just do. Otherwise, they fall flat. Because at the end of the day, there's just not that... There's only so many things you can do for a side quest in a video game. I mean, there's really only so much. Most side quests that you look at are like some version of a fetch quest, some version of a go here, shoot that, then come back, or maybe deliver this thing to this location, then come back. There's just not that much you can do. But the stories can make them unique.
There's no creative energy throughout this entire product, I feel. As you complete these objectives, you're going to earn skills. These are things that you can use in combat, like throwing a grenade. You can get some health upgrades. You can get proximity mines, and you also get perks. These are buffs like running fast when your health is low. So there is a progression system. You cap out at level 20. You're pretty much going to be there by the end of the game. And not only that, but there are progressions through challenges for each vehicle, challenges for each weapon. Like, the skeleton is there for fun progression, but for example, when I maxed out my assault rifle, my 3-burst assault rifle, it didn't really matter because the change to the assault rifle, which you got via the upgrade, was not impressive. It had more power, and that was it. So when I killed an enemy, it did a little more damage, and it sent them flying a little bit further, and that was it. Obviously, there's a case-by-case basis here, but it will underwhelm you when it delivers on its promised rewards. That is another frustrating thing. With the loot being forced upon you, the least you could do is give me fun things to mess around with it in, and I don't even think it does that well enough. There are the occasional cool surprises like a hover bike with a cool laser cannon on it. That stuff is great, and that's where this game shines, when it's giving you like an amazing vehicle and romping through a mission, causing true chaos. That stuff can be fun when it works. That stuff can be fun, but it's so exceedingly rare, it's almost borderline not worth mentioning. And I say that as a game reviewer. It's my job to mention these types of things. But anyway, another aspect of combat that you'll want to pay attention to is the way you get health back. So there's no health pickups, there's no medical items, there's no food you eat or anything like that. The way you get health is by, as you mow down enemies, you'll run up to one of them, you'll execute them, you'll get like a small bar of health back. It is what it is, I guess, because the combat AI barely worked, so it didn't matter. I didn't have to worry about dying almost ever. But I feel like this game eventually became very self-aware that it didn't work, because even things like the regenning of health, they didn't give you much because they kind of were like, you don't really need this. It's just sort of there so you can do something different in combat. So that was one aspect of combat. Otherwise, it's a third-person shooter that, call me crazy here, but I just played Saints Row the Third with Kev Do It for a video on his channel a couple of months ago. And it was my first time going back to this game since the 360 days. That game still plays kind of well, and I was kind of surprised when playing Saints Row that this game feels so incomplete that even the shooting feels worse than prior entries. And that's really tough to do. It's hard to show, but it's really a feel thing. The movement felt clunky, the field of view was a little too close, the aiming wasn't as snappy, but the combat AI not being as reactive, it wasn't fun. The guns weren't as punchy, the reticle and reticle spread just wasn't right, didn't feel tight enough. It is just, again, crumbling beneath its own weight, and its ambitions aren't even sky high. That's the sad part. Mesh that with a game that is downright silent and it's a weird experience. You know, usually when a mission kicks up, and this game does have those missions where like a song will hit and it's designed to provide a vibe, a feeling. You're like, okay, cool, here we go. I like this. There is very little of that. I'm not asking for like the soundtrack drops. I'm talking about just like ambient action music. So a lot of missions are just played in pure silence.
This is not how I thought my day would go. At least this is better than speed dating.
It's so bad. His face. That face is perfect. That's the face. It's just like, here's the thing. I used to wonder, like a month ago, way back a month ago, I used to think maybe all of these problems we're seeing with these games are because of like COVID and working from home, and maybe like the remote work makes it way harder to manage bugs, and so that's why all these games are rough and coming out broken. But like From Software is in Japan, and Japan had and has one of the most strict quarantining like programs or laws or policies, whatever, in the world, like because it's so tightly grouped, because everybody lives so closely together. It's a very dense country in terms of population, and they just like they didn't run into these issues. They released just fine. It had some bugs, but it was easy to patch out the PC bugs because it was like a shader compiling error. So they patched it. It took like, you know, a few days, and they were like, oh crap. And they realized the problem and they moved on. But like, this isn't, I used to like just try to excuse these things. Well, maybe it's just because of quarantine and remote work. I don't think that's the case, actually. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh, maybe these games are just like, they just suck. I mean, maybe it's as simple as just they just didn't give it enough time. They weren't ready. They screwed up this way or that way. I don't know. But it's so bad. Yeah. Occam's razor. Well, yeah, so Occam's razor is just like whatever solution doesn't multiply assumptions should be the one that you, or presumptions, shouldn't be the one that you accept. Or that multiplies the least number of presumptions is the one you should accept. So the simplest answer is often the correct one. So it's like, is it quarantine and remote work and all of that that's causing the teams to be really, really difficult to organize, whatever? Or is it just that this game was poorly developed and wasn't really designed super well, and the development team didn't think a lot of this through? That's probably more likely. And it just seems like time and time again, there's just more and more examples of the game, like these games coming out that are just lazy. And what I can't stand, and people have been saying it in chat, is the sort of Fortnite-ification of these like bland AAA games where they're all kind of doing that same art style. They do the flashy colors, the cringy comedy, all that random stuff. And like, that's it. That's all they have to bring to the table. Like, I would just expect more than that, but it's because I really think they're trying to appeal to the teeny boppers, and they're hoping that those people will buy the game and kind of save it, because the older audiences aren't going to play it, and the older audiences expect much better games that are a lot harder to develop and a lot more expensive, whereas kids have a very high tolerance for crappy games. I mean, think back to when you were a kid, how many crappy games you played. I think back to some of the games I used to play, and I was like, oh, that was so great. And then I look back at the footage now, and I'm like, I liked that? Oh, God. You know, like, we used to play so many crappy games and just excuse it because it was whatever, you know. I don't know. I'll just stick with RimWorld 10 times most AAA games. Oh, dude, RimWorld, you can spend so much time in that game, for real. For real. Let's hear him wrap it up.
It's again very strange because it feels like no one looked back at some of the older Saints Row games and tried to figure out what made them work. They just started from the ground up. And the reason that's important to mention is because this is a studio that's made 5 video games. We're talking about Saints Row 1, 2, 3, 4, and by the way, you may have forgot, Agents of Mayhem. So they've made 5 games, but I can't emphasize enough that Saints Row well and truly feels like the studio's first game because it's that much of a step back creatively. It's that much of a step back technically that I feel like people are going to think like, oh, this is Volition's first outing. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I know how tough it is to make a game. I've laid my hands on game engines. I know how difficult it is, but this is just unacceptable and you got to call it as it is. You can play this game in co-op if you so desire. I personally did not because I am a good friend. I decided not to force anyone to participate in this silly social experiment with me. And that's basically all Saints Row offers from top to bottom. Its soundtrack pickings are actually kind of good. They have this one radio station called Tumbleweed, which plays like some tracks from New Vegas. Yeah, my Fallout fandom came out a bit in that one. I was digging that, sometimes romping around the desert while that track hits. You can again get a feel for what the game is going for. But otherwise, this game suffers from an identity crisis. It doesn't know what it wants to be. Its writing is downright terrible. That's, I guess, for many people acceptable because it's trying to be comedic. But even then, the comedy isn't good, which ties back into the bad writing. The gameplay is unfun. The systems are there for something that could be a satisfying loop, but completing them is downright impossible because the game doesn't work. Then the missions themselves and the main story just don't work. The opposite of the Todd Howard slogan here. Get what I'm saying? So to me, Saints Row gets a very rare rating for me, which is an outright never touch. This game, if I could erase it from my experience, I would. Because you may be wondering, what's the aggression, Maddie? Like, you're a chill dude. What's going on here? Look.
Why you say angry, bro? Why you angry, bro? It's one of my favorite comments to get is when, like, what video was it? Maybe it was Stray. Like, I don't think I even came off as mad in Stray. I was just like, yeah, if you can play it for free on PlayStation Plus, you should play it for free. They still get a kickback from PlayStation, of course. You know, don't pay for it if you can get away with not paying for it. And then like all the comments, you mad, bro? Why are you so mad? You just came off as like really angry. It's just, I love it.
Look, I'll be real with you. I had a bit of an epiphany with this game.
What are you mad? It's the only game.
Right? We're all on this planet for a limited time. 30 hours is a lot of time. 30 plus hours is a lot of time. And spending 30 plus hours with something I positively did not like, I feel a lot more impassioned when I really don't like something like this to dive into why it must be avoided. Because there's experiences I have where maybe it wasn't for me, but I could see it being for someone else. But there's games like this that just I can't simply recommend at all on any level of a sale. I really did not enjoy my time with Saints Row, and I have to say, stay far away from it. A very rare, never touch rating from me. That's all I gotta say about this game. I'm sure this will be a joy in the comments, but I gotta keep it real. I'm sorry if you were looking forward to this game. I'm not here to crush your hopes and dreams, but do yourself a favor, play something else.
I mean, he makes his point. It's just, it is a bummer for the developers that work on these games for like 3 years and then the feedback comes out and it's like, yeah, this is horrible. Stay away from it as much as possible. Just don't touch it. It's gotta be very depressing. Like today is a very sad day for a few hundred people. But it is what it is. And if they were even halfway decent developers, I'm guessing they knew that. There's no way they didn't know that. You know, like they knew. You don't make this game, and when you're developing a game, you are playing it for months. You play through all of it. So they had to have a feeling like, hey, this is like really buggy and it's like not really that fun. But it's why, like, it's the other thing I've mentioned before. When you do YouTube and you start to get like a bit of an audience behind you, there comes a day where you post a video on a game and then one of the people that worked on that game for years reaches out and like talks to you about it. And it completely changes your perspective because you're like, oh crap, I was very mean. And this was somebody's like passion project for years. And you just gotta, like, on the one hand, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings unnecessarily, but also if the game is just not good, you have to call it out like it is, you know. You gotta be real. And so even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's awkward, the only fair thing to the audience is to be as honest and direct as you possibly can be, even if it's awkward, you know. So it's just sad. It's just sad, but it is what it is. So Saints Row 2022, probably a stay away. Not really something you want to tackle yourself. I haven't given it much time. I don't want to give it more. I want to stay away. So I don't know if like tomorrow, I don't know if we want to even bother with it. I don't know. I just don't freaking know. But don't bother. Don't bother. This is, you know, if it's on Game Pass, again, Game Pass changes everything. If there's a Game Pass release of this, then we can come out and like try it for an hour and be like, oh yeah, this is horrible. And then give up on it and move on. But when you have to put money up, it just changes it.